an example to the world, an example of how to do things God's way, and therefore, or thereby, if you wish, accrue all the marvelous benefits. Obey the law and they will come. Disobey and suffer. And our countries are beginning to see that now. It would have been good for them if they'd done it, but they didn't, of course. And God knew that they wouldn't. Deuteronomy 5, if you would please. In this book, Moses is reminding them of all the law. It's more or less the end of his life. He's going to be taken away from them. They're going to go on into the promised land. And you may recall that at the first, and he is telling them to remember that, when the law came to them, they were scared half out of their wits.
Okay, shalom. So it looks like the sound is working this time. I'm going to do an abbreviated version. Newsletter. So this is newsletter 13 for this current year. Day of the third month. And I'll just do one more sound check one right now. Just listen to it live. See if this works. Testing 1, 2. No, it's not working. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's working, but testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Okay, right. Okay. Looks like it's working now. Okay. So starting May 16, 2020, Shabbat Shalom to the royal family of Jehovah. First subheading says the wheat is ripe in the north. So this past week, we received news from Israel that the wild wheat in the north was ready to harvest. If it is ready now in the north, what about the south, which ripens much earlier? What this is telling us is this. We now have Jehovah showing us again that the timing for Passover and for Shavuot was at the right time, even though it seemed like we were too early. Wild wheat turns black when it is ready to harvest or to seed itself. So look at that. Wow. Right there. That is nice and beautiful. So in the year of 2020, that is the middle of the 70th Jubilee, as told to us by Daniel, it is a pivotal year. This year was declared early, and Jehovah is in charge. Passover on March 10, 11, the WHO declared a worldwide pandemic, and the barley was ripe by Wave Sheaf Day. The week before Shavuot, the UN warned the world that we will be in a famine in 3 months' time with 135 million people starving. That's around July the 5th, 2020. And the week before and after Shavuot, meat processing plants were closed down. So that's going to be a problem. I don't know about you, but every time I read Leviticus 26, I see the very thing spoken of in it happening on our nightly news, the very things I have been warning you about since 2005. And even as they happen, and you see them on the nightly news, many still deny it, and they write it off to some other natural cause. It's Leviticus 26, 23 to 29. Just refer to it there. The WHO, an office of the UN, has declared a worldwide pandemic at Passover, and then the UN warned of a biblical famine as Shavuot drew near. Or are they going to declare this fall? I have no idea, but maybe one of you will read Leviticus 26 and tell me. I'm just going to look up. When did they declare? See when they declared that. I don't have the date. It's the UN warned of biblical famine. UN warned biblical famine. What day was that? Just out of curiosity. April 22. Okay. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to fact check that and see what day that was, or what day. Anyway. What are you going to declare this fall? I have no idea, but maybe one of you will read Leviticus 26 and tell me. Many dismiss these facts because they can't figure out or figure out or disagree with me about the Jubilee cycle, whether it's 49 or 50 years, because I don't match their Christian-based theology or how the end is supposed to be, They still think they're going to be raptured because they're good people. If you're still in denial, then let me ask you how you like your meat. Well done, medium, or raw? And, talking about, I think, cannibalism, possibly. Email list. If you're not subscribed to the email, or if you are, make sure you check the emails, you open them up, not just look at the titles. That's what I've been doing. So you have to ensure you're still on the list, you have to open the email itself. This will then ensure your continued emails to be sent to you regarding the newsletter and updates. Thank you for supporting this work. Just a thank you to those who are helping. So basically, the tithe was given to the Levites, and he's never asked for anyone to tithe to him. Joseph never asked to tithe to us, never claimed to be a Levite, but he's just asking to make an investment in this work and stand with us as we help to reach more people as time is running out. And he's doing this full time now. It appears that a lot of our work situations just won't come back. So please pray for this work. We've been warning about this, about the year 2020 for the past 15 years. So if not now, if you're not going to help now, then when? There's Revelation 3, bad meeting, which is earlier today, reckless endangerment. Okay. So people have been condemning Joseph about this. They're attacking him about regarding various ideas going around. They are saying that, this proves that we're right. But is anyone really willing to repent? People want to go back to work. They demand the right to assemble. But doing that, you're putting people's lives at risk, because whether you're healthy or not, you can have the virus and not know, and then infect people who are actually sick. Just summarizing what this section is talking about. So everything in the scriptures, it's there to help you preserve life, to enjoy life. The scriptures also say that those who cause death should also lose their lives. Are you 100% sure that you're not carrying the virus? How can you really know if you're without getting a test? If you are one that causes others to get sick and die, what should we do with you? Because you exercised your right to do whatever you wanted, to protest and whatnot. And you endangered others in our society and possibly even killed them because it was you who brought the plague to them. Okay, there's a video there about an former athlete that actually got infected, and talks about his experience. I haven't watched this, but former coronavirus skeptic warns others to take the pandemic seriously after infection. So there's so many stories like this. Brian Lee Hitchens said he used to believe that COVID-19 was a fake crisis, and now he's imploring people to listen to the experts. Okay. Since 2005, Sighted Moon has been warning you that this curse was coming. You mocked us then, and you denied it, and you attacked us back then. Leviticus 26, the curses, verses 23 to 29. Instead of preparing for it, you made light of it. You played religion. You didn't change. You did not change. You pretended to be holy when You were full of pride, and yet you still demanded your rights. Go back and read what it says in the second curse of Leviticus 26 and verses 18 to 20. Jehovah said, I'm going to break the pride of your power. Let us take a look at three main words in the sentence. The first word is break, shabar. Second word is pride, ga'on. And the third is power, or oz. That made you proud, the thing that made you mighty above the nations, and he's going to humble you. He's taking your money away, your financial institutions, the financial power, the movie entertainment industry, gambling industry, your ability to pay the rent, buy food to support yourselves. And he's done this just with one plague. More than 33 million Americans lost their jobs since February 2020. And it's plain to see, Jehovah is the one breaking your pride right now as you watch and you fight and you scream. If you objected when prayers were removed from classrooms, there were no massive strikes when God was removed from all public institutions. That's a really good point. When they, labeled the Bible as hate speech, was there any anyone protesting? People doing mass protests about that, maybe comments here and there, but a big outcry. I don't notice any of those things, and that's the reality of the world we live in. In these last days, knowledge of Jehovah is being poured out onto all of us, but who's taking up the challenge to learn about him? Who's up in arms about Jehovah being taken away from our culture? But the moment your own ability to provide for yourself is attacked, when you are attacked personally, people rebel, they revolt, they a large big outcry and stir up people, and but when it comes to God, who's really fighting for God? Not even a whimper. The voices are very silent and silenced by the media. Proverbs 1 verses 20 to 31. Who is repenting, and what nation is repenting? Are you? Hosea 4:6. No one is repenting. And I said last week, Proverbs 26:2, a curse without cause shall not come. And again, we told you what the answer was to fix this pandemic. It's Exodus 23:25. No one is fixing this. The nations are not telling you to pray, or are they saying for each of us to seek Jehovah? Instead, they're trying to force their way back and us be spreading the virus even more than it's spreading now. People are locked down in their homes, but it's still spreading. What more if we're just out roaming about? It's going to spread 10 times worse, maybe more. And there's how many cases? Over 4 million cases in the world. So 10 times more would be 40 million, right? The second wave is going to make the first one small by comparison, yeah. As Hosea warns us, Jehovah will forget our children. There's increasing reports that COVID-19 is actually killing children now. And more children. And the virus many of you say is fake is attacking in many forms. It destroys different organ systems. Because we will not obey and will not turn back to Jehovah, he warned us what was coming in Deuteronomy 28, verses 20 to 22. And then last week, the WHO stated the following, that the virus may never go away. Jehovah's put up with our nonsense. He's replaced it with our nonsense for a very long time. And he's allowed us to reap our own rewards. This pandemic and the shutdown is what we have earned. And when Yeshua said this, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Actually, the pandemic shut down this evil system. But in a way, it kind of saved those who love Jehovah, because we can be free to focus all our time on him, on our relationships with each other, with their families, all the things that really matter. But when we're slaves to work, like I'm sure a lot of parents are telling their kids, oh, sorry, I don't have time to, play with you or give you a minute of a day to actually listen to their kids and, foster their relationship with their family. And priorities were so messed up. But now God's telling people, get your priorities straight. This is what's really important, not money, not all these things. Is your relationships with me, with each other, obeying me, right? Not living in sin. and just living the way you always have, being your own Elohim and saying, I know the way that's right, and we don't. That way it leads to death. The word faith is pistis in Greek. So he asked the question whether or not there will even be faith left on the earth at his return. If he is omnipotent and omniscient, why would he ask a question like that? It's almost like it's going to get so bad before he comes back, Jesus Christ, that he asks this question of whether or not there will even be faith left on the earth at his return. And what is it that you spend all your time studying? Are you strengthening your faith by studying his words, or is all your time on other things? So from now on, I'm going to use the name Jesus Christ just because this message needs to be spread. In my videos, I'm going to say Jesus Christ from now on just because that's what people are familiar with. But when I'm talking to people like brethren who know better, I won't use that name, obviously, because we know what name to use. But in terms of preaching the gospel, that's what you have to do. You got to speak to the level of the audience. So, all right, 1602. We're doing pretty good for time. So Matthew 24:10-14, Yeshua said, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. Boundless iniquity and a growing lack of love throughout the earth. And there's really no limit on all the sins that we've done. Like, what is really illegal anymore? Besides pedophilia, bestiality, and, there's laws against murder and theft, but people find loopholes around those, and they still spiritually and technically commit murder and theft. The word iniquity is anomia in the Greek. How do people become ignorant of the law? So anomia can also mean being ignorant of the law, violating the law in ignorance. And, the word for sin in Hebrew, it means to miss the mark. And we can sin either unintentionally because we don't know any better. Like, for example, those of us who didn't know about the Sabbath and we were doing Sunday, we've sinned. But we sinned out of not knowing. But now that we know better, if we were to break the Sabbath and we know better, the penalty is going to be way harsher. So how do we become ignorant of the law? People are not taught the law. They don't even bother to learn. Instead, they're taught everything else but the Torah. They're taught conspiracies. How do they have contempt? They have to change. That tells them they're wrong when it begins to crowd into what they feel is right, and then they don't want to obey the laws. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3-4. Falling away from faith in Jehovah throughout the earth. Maybe you haven't fallen away, or you live in a community where faith is still vibrant. But on a national and international scale, faith in Jehovah has declined dramatically in the last century or so, especially throughout the nations of the Western world. Look at America since the 1766 or 76. Sorry, you had New England, the state of New England. They banned Christmas. They banned Halloween. Those were forbidden to keep. Easter, they were recognized correctly and rightly as pagan. Rhode Island at one point majority of them were Sabbath keepers. The majority of Ireland as a nation were Sabbath keeping. Can I say that today? That New England is banned? No. How far we have fallen. Look at the word translated as falling away, apostasia in Greek. And it's very close to our modern English word, apostasy, which has its roots, came from the Greek directly. The samach, which pretty much means apostle. And there's so many variations about it in all these different languages. So the word apostle means one that is sent out. And it's similar to the word messenger, like angel, or malach. What they are doing is directing people back to the way of Jehovah. And the word apostate or apostasy is apostate. Okay. Apostasy is when you refuse to follow, obey, or abandon the faith, or abandon a faith or a loyalty. An apostate is a defector, a rebel. We're looking at this great falling away. What is it? And are you a part of it? without knowing it. Again, the word apostle is one sent, and the word apostate is one who refuses to follow a previous loyalty. In other words, apostates lead you away and do not bring you towards the one who sent them. Apostles lead back to the source or the way. Conspiracy teachings, on the other hand, are apostate because they lead people away from Jehovah. No matter how you spin them to make it okay for you to spread them around, the conspiracies, whether it's a little white lie or big fat juicy ones, your testimony on behalf of Jehovah gets defiled with each conspiracy that you share. It is apostasy to Jehovah. Consider what Paul warned us about in Romans 11, verses 16 to 24. Of life, then we must be grafted in, whether or not we were Israelites by birth or not. All those of the tree are nourished by the roots of this tree of life, and we should be producing fruits in our lives from the tree of life. An olive tree will send out its roots, and every so often it will send up a shoot, or what is called a netzer. Now, Yeshua was a netzer, and this is where he got his title as Natzarim. These netzers do not come from a seed and never got there on their own. It is 100% dependent on the root of the tree. This is like the apostle that goes forth. So samach, again, means branch. Notice what we are told about this samach in Jeremiah 23, verses 1 to 8. You have shepherds who destroy the sheep. They are leading this falling away. You must ask yourself how they are doing it. This prophecy above is speaking of our times now, not the days when only the tribe of Judah returned to the land. Israel does not yet dwell safely in the land, only Judah. Israel and Judah are two different groups of people, and they do not now dwell safely in the land. Judah is there, but they are not safe. Notice that the name of that branch is called Jehovah, our righteousness. Jehovah is our Zemach, our branch of Zedekah. Look at the scriptures connected to this branch. Isaiah 11, verse 1. The word branch in Isaiah is the word rod, or koter, or koter. Notice this word branch again in Isaiah 11, verses 10 and 11. And the word root is sheresh in Hebrew. We have spoken a lot about verse 11 lately, but we're looking at this word root and rod. In Isaiah 53, we again have this branch mentioned. Isaiah 53, verses 1 to 5. And here, the tender plant is yonek, or yonek in Hebrew. Now read what you are told in Jeremiah about this branch, in Jeremiah 33, verses 14 to 16. And then the word branch again, in Hebrew, the word samach. The word for righteousness in Hebrew is zedakah. Zedakah. Who are we talking about in all of the above scriptures? Jehovah is that branch of righteousness. He is the Zamach Zedakah. Now read what Isaiah 3, verses 8 and 9. When we look up the word Joshua, it is the word Jehovah saved. Today we say the same word as Yeshua, Yehoshua. I have asked you all to read Isaiah over the past few weeks, and there is a ton of great reading to do there. Let me now share just one example, and this is Isaiah 42, verses 1 to 25, and Isaiah 43, verses 1 to 12. And then it says here, who are the deaf and blind? You are. Isaiah 42, 18 to 20. Are you listening? Do you see? Can you understand yet? He sent you out, but you're not listening. He sent you out, but you do not see his ways, only yours, and you presume your ways to be the right way. Jeremiah 17, verses 7 to 10. And who was our Savior? Jehovah is our Yeshua and our Zamach Zedekah. Isaiah 43, 11. I am Jehovah, and besides me, there is no Yeshua. Now, when you read Zechariah 6, you can now understand who's going to build the temple. Is it the Jews in these last days? Was Zechariah speaking of the time when Zerubbabel rebuilt the second temple? Yes. Zechariah was speaking both to his time and to ours. A lot of prophecy is dual, as you'll notice when you read a lot of the prophecies. Zechariah 6, verse 12, this branch is going to build the temple. We are told something in Isaiah about who is going to come. Isaiah 7, verse 14, Emmanuel, that's going to be his name, or was to be his name. Emmanuel. Means with, and El means God, or Elohim. His name is Jehovah is with us. Matthew chapter 1, verse 18 to 23. And take note that the word Jesus is the Greek word for Jesus, Greek. And as we have already shown you above, but do so again, Jehovah saves, Yehoshua, our Savior. Yeshua and our Zamak Zadaka is the one that is coming. It is he who's going to build this temple. So when you read John, you know of whom he is speaking of. John 1, verses 1 to 4. So what am I saying here? Our shepherds, those of you who are called to be kings and priests in the kingdom, are teaching the new lambs, or the babes, everything under the sun except Jehovah and his Torah. In so doing, you have said that this curse of Jehovah, which is described in Leviticus 26, and is to come at this time in the midst of the 70th Jubilee cycle, is fake. You have denied it is real, and that it's just some plan created by men in some back room. You have denied Jehovah his glory as he works to bring all men back to himself. How many sheep are you nurturing and teaching Torah to? What are you going to say to Jehovah when he says, I will require my flock at their hand? Are you working to help find those lost sheep? Are you helping us to do this? Are you fighting against us? Are you teaching them the Shabbat and the holy days and the crescent moon to begin the month, and the barley to begin the year, the Aviv barley? Are you teaching them the Shemitah and the Jubilee years? Are you teaching to be faithful and loving and kind and merciful? What is it that you are teaching? And does that teaching bring people back to Jehovah as an apostle, or away, apostasy? What are your shepherds teaching? If they are teaching lies and you're supporting them, then you are just as guilty. Prophecy against the shepherds of Israel, Ezekiel 34, verses 1 to 31. The merchants of words. Let me just double check. We're doing pretty good for time. Okay. Speech and Lashon Hara. So there's a lot of Talmudic laws in here. Gossip and slander are serious sins in Judaism, and Judaism forbids any deception or embarrassment through speech. It is forbidden even if the statement is true, and there are some exceptions that allow tale-bearing. So people talk about how hard it is to observe Jewish law, but usually they mention observing Shabbat or keeping kosher, and other detailed rituals. Yet the laws that are most difficult to keep are the ones that are most commonly violated even by observant Jews, which are the laws of improper speech. This is a very important area of Jewish law. Entire books have been written on the subject, and there's a story of a rabbi who said, someone told a malicious lie about a rabbi, and then the person who told the lie, the rabbi went to the rabbi and asked for forgiveness for what he had said, spreading those lies. And the rabbi said, okay, take a feather pillow, cut it open, and scatter the feathers to the winds. That's what you can do to make amends. And so the man thought this was okay, it's weird, but I'll do it. It's easy enough. So he did it. When he returned to tell the rabbi that he'd done this the feat, the rabbi said, now go and gather the feathers, because you can't no more make amends for the damage your words have caused than you can recollect the feathers. Speech has been compared to an arrow. Once the words are released like an arrow, they cannot be recalled. The harm they do cannot be stopped, and the harm they do cannot always be predicted, for words like arrows often go astray. And in Proverbs, it talks about how uh, gossip and bad news spreads like wildfire. So I think a better analogy would be, someone burning down a forest. Well, the only way to restore that forest is if you bring those original trees that you burned down back to life and in the original state. And that's impossible. To gather those feathers again, I wouldn't say it's impossible. It wouldn't be completely impossible. It would be difficult, really difficult, but to restore a forest back to its original state, and the same trees too, don't plant new one, destroying. It's impossible with men. Tail bearing. There are two mitzvot in the Torah that specifically address improper speech. You shall not go up and down as a tail bearer, wrong one another. Leviticus 25:17, which I looked up in the Septuagint, and it says you shall not oppress your people, which generally means pretty much the same thing. But Leviticus 19 I did not look up, so let me just take the liberty to do that right now. Leviticus, hopefully it says the same thing. You shall not walk deceitfully among your people. You shall not rise up against the blood of your neighbor. I am Jehovah your Elohim. So walking deceitfully, yeah. So, deceitfulness. Talebearing is essentially any gossip. The Hebrew word for talebearer is rachil, which is related to a word meaning trader or merchant. So it's like you're a merchant of words, of information. It is a violation of this mitzvah to say anything about another person, even if it's true, as we said, as was said earlier. The person who listens to gossip is even worse than the one who tells it, because no harm can be done by gossip if no one listened to it. It is said that lashon hara, disparaging speech, kills three: the person who speaks it, the person who hears it, and the person about whom it is told. In Jewish law, all things are considered to be secret unless a person specifically says otherwise. So you'll note that whenever God talks to Moses, he says, speak to the children of Israel, saying, or speak to the children of Israel and tell them. But if God did not specifically say this to Moses, then Moses would be forbidden to repeat his words, nor is there any time limit on secrets. There's a story of a student in the Talmud that revealed a secret that he had heard 22 years earlier, and he was banished immediately. The gravest of these sins of talebearing is lashon hara, the evil tongue, literally, which involves discrediting a person or saying negative things about them, even if they're true. True statements are even more damaging than false ones because you can't defend yourself by disproving the negative statement if it's true. Some sources indicate that lashon hara is equal in seriousness to murder, idol worship, and incest, adultery, the only three sins you may not violate even to save a life, according to the Talmud. It is forbidden to even imply or suggest negative things about a person. It is forbidden to say negative things about a person, even in jest. It is a shade of lashon hara. Even to say positive things about a person in the presence of his enemies, because this is going to encourage that person's enemies to say bad things that to contradict you. One who tells disparaging things that are false is referred to as a motzi shem ra, one who spreads a bad report. This is considered the lowest of the low. It's generally not a sin to repeat things that have been told in the presence of three persons. The idea is that if you tell it in the presence of three people, it's already public knowledge, and no harm can come of retelling it. However, even in this case, you should not repeat it. If you know, you will be spreading the gossip further. When talebearing is allowed, so when is that allowed? If you're required to reveal information, even if it is something told explicitly in confidence, even if it will harm a person, in the Jewish court of law, that's an exception. If you're required to reveal information to protect a person from immediate serious harm, for example, if someone is, you hear that someone is plotting to kill somebody, you should reveal that information. There's another reason why the commandment not to go about as a talebearer is juxtaposed with You shall not stand aside while your fellow's blood is shed. So I think that's Leviticus 19. Where's that again? You shall not rise up against the blood of your neighbor. Yeah. In limited circumstances, one is also permitted to reveal information if you're entering into a relationship that you would not enter if you knew certain information. So if you're getting into a business deal with someone who's untrustworthy, or you're getting married to someone who has a venereal disease. This exception is subject to significant limitations. However, if those limitations are satisfied, the person with information is required to reveal it. In all of these exceptions, a person is not permitted to reveal information if the same objective could be fulfilled without revealing information. So for example, if you could talk to a person out of marrying for reasons other than the disease, you may not reveal the disease. Interesting. Okay. So don't marry this person because he was married before, maybe? So, okay, I don't know. I don't know if that's really Torah. It's just, I think it's Talmudic, so it's their opinions, traditions of men. Wronging a person through speech. Leviticus 25:17 says, you shall not wrong one another or oppress one another. This has been interpreted as wronging a person with speech. It includes any statement that will embarrass, insult, or deceive a person or cause a person emotional pain or distress. Here are some commonly used examples of behavior that is forbidden by this mitzvah. You may not call a person by a derogatory nickname, even if they're used to it. Don't embarrass them. You may not ask an uneducated person for an opinion on a scholarly manner that would draw attention to their lack of knowledge. So that's another humiliation too. You may not ask a merchant how much he would sell something if you don't have the intention of buying. You may not refer someone to another person for assistance when you know the other person cannot help. To give them a runaround. You may not deceive a person even if no harm is done by the deception. For example, you may not sell non-kosher meat to a non-Jew telling him it is kosher, even though no harm is done to the non-Jew by this deception. You may not sell a person damaged goods without first identifying the damage, even if the price you give it is fair for the goods in their damaged condition. Transparency. You may not offer a person a gift or invite a person to dinner if you know that person will not accept. And you may not compliment a person if you do not mean it with sincerity. So that's the week's newsletter. So thank you for listening. This time the sound worked. And I did a Reader's Digest version, which just went over the highlights. And I thank you for your time. Shavua Tov. And may Jehovah bless you. May the Lord God bless you and make your way prosperous. Until next time.